Good morning. Let's begin quietly, as we do when the wind has been up all night and the house is rattled. Many of you are not really tormented by unpaid bills or empty cupboards. You are suffering from a louder thing, the inner persuasion that you are cut off, that you and God are on different sides of the counter. That is lack consciousness. It speaks with authority in the nerves and insists, do something, fix it, hurry. When lack talks loud, return to the word that was before the need. In the beginning was the Word, and the word that answers lack is not a figure to be written in a ledger. It is I am. Now, I don't mean a clever slogan. Don't try to take I am as a charm to paste over fear. In other words, this is not an affirmation to decorate your circumstances. I am that I am was not given to Moses for analysis. It was given as a presence, as the self-revealing name of God before there were tablets, before there was law. And the Master could say, before Abraham was, I am. Not to boast of age, but to bear witness that identity is prior to genealogy, prior to predicament. The I am precedes the story. And because it precedes the story, it governs the story when realized. Our work this hour is very simple. We will not add adjectives to I am. The moment you begin to say, I am rich, I am successful, I am this, I am that, very often you are trying to fix fear instead of resting in presence. Don't try. Live it. Exemplify it. Be still and know that I am God. Do you see? The knowing is not mental noise. It is a quiet consent to what is already true at the center of your being. When you are urged to outline, to arrange, to bargain with the universe, stop. Return to I am. Let it be bare. Let it be holy. Let it be enough. We are not here to perform. We are here to touch principle. Principle is not improved by your effort, nor is it withheld by your unworthiness. Grace does not glance first at your credit report. It simply is. And as a matter of fact, if it doesn't come easy this morning, if the chest still flutters and the palms still sweat, do not strain. I don't know how many minutes it will take for each one. That hasn't unfolded to me yet. But I do know that the principle stands. Lack is first a state of consciousness, and I am is your way back to presence before you chase a solution. Can you feel the difference? One mode is the anxious engineer tinkering at the outside of the machine, swapping parts. The other is the awareness that the life of the machine is not the part, not the bolt, not the oil, but the life that runs it. In other words, do not start from the bill. Start from the I. I am the bread of life, said the Master. He did not mean a warehouse. He meant presence as substance, invisible to sense, felt within, appearing as the needed form when and as required. So settle. Close the book of complaints and return to the word before the need. Sit in the bare I am, not as an idea to be argued, but as the one that is your life. If it doesn't flower at once, do not pick at the soil. It is the nature of this I to reveal itself. Our aim today is not to make I am pretty. Our aim is to rest in it until it begins to be felt, until it quietly supervises the mind and the breath. Then, without advertising itself, it will appear as peace, as a right word, as a next step, and you will know you have not added anything, you have simply returned. Stay with the bareness for a moment. Don't decorate the I am. The very instant you feel compelled to fix it up, I am strong, I am prosperous, I am healed. Notice what has happened in you. You are not resting, you are bargaining. You are trying to talk louder than the fear that sits in the pit of the stomach. And so you make words work like little hammers, and each blow betrays the quiet. We have all done it. I have caught myself at it when the mail arrived with 3 letters that looked like they were going to be trouble. I began, I am safe, I am supplied, I am upheld, and still the pulse argued back. Why? Because the adding was not trust. It was a confession that I did not yet trust the I itself. I am that I am. That is the name revealed, not a phrase to embroider. It is not improved by our adjectives. In other words, you don't gild the sun to make it shine. You don't wind up the ocean to make it tide. I am is presence. I am is life. I is supply. I embody supply. The moment we adorn it, we are usually moving back under the belief that if we say it right or enough times or with enough emotional muscle, we can make it so. That is law effort. I must make this true, but grace does not wait to be made. The law came by Moses, grace and truth came by Jesus Christ. Grace says it is true because God is, not by might nor by power, do you see, but by my Spirit. Sit with me in a simple experiment. Say inwardly, quietly, without hurry, I am. Then stop. Do nothing more. Watch what the mind wants to do with that. It wants to add safe. It wants to add provided for. It wants to add free of this condition by Thursday. That twitch, that urge, is not the Spirit. That is the seat of lack revealing itself. Do not scold it. Smile at it. Let it pass. Return to the simple. I am. Let the phrase drop from the lips, yes, but more than that, let it drop inward like a stone into still water until the ripples are felt in the chest, the breath. Be still and know that I am God. The knowing doesn't come because you have described God adequately. It comes because you have ceased to demand a description. Words are not power. The Word is power. In the beginning was the Word, not the adjectives. And as a matter of fact, I don't know how many days or minutes it will take before this becomes more than a method to you. That hasn't unfolded to me yet. But the principle stands. When you adorn the I, very often you admit you do not yet believe the I is enough. Under cosmic law, you think in causes and effects, and you work at the outside to produce an inside. Under grace, you begin inside with I am, and you discover the outside arranging itself in ways you could not outline. Take no thought for your life, the Master said, and then added this outrageous assurance. Your Father knoweth that ye have need of these things. Do you see the order? Presence first, provision follows. Conscious contact first, forms unfold. Let me put it plain. Don't try to make I am do anything. Don't bully it into producing a check by Friday. Don't hire it as your private contractor for a healing. Live it, exemplify it, consent to it. Trust that what God is already is, and that realization, not repetition, will change what can appear as your life. The orange tree does not keep whispering, I am fruitful, I am fruitful. The life within it is its fruitfulness, and in season it shows as oranges. So it is with you. The I within you is your invisible substance. In season, it appears as strength where strength is required, as funds where funds are fitting, as wisdom where wisdom is the order of the day, not because you added labels to I, but because you yielded to I as presence. So try it again today, in some small moment. The email arrives, the body twinges, the child calls from the other room, say, I am, and stop. Feel the mind reach for more, I am capable, I am pain-free, I am patient. And notice that reach as the old law trying to pay its penalties and settle its accounts. Then gently release it. Let the still small voice be small and still, and a voice, do not hurry it. In that quiet, a new atmosphere arises. You haven't improved God, you have consented to God. And in that consent, fear loosens, not because you drowned it in syllables, but because presence, realized even a little, outshines it. That is the foundation. Keep it there. Keep it holy. Keep it enough. Now let us look again at that word given at the bush. Moses asked for a name, as we all do, when fear presses and authority is demanded, and the answer came not as a title to engrave, but as being speaking for itself. I am that I am. Not, I am strength for Moses. Not, I am success for Israel. But I am self-existent, self-sustained, self-proving life. In other words, infinity refused to be reduced to a label. The infinite identified itself not as a form to be handled, but as presence to be contacted. Draw not nigh hither, put off thy shoes, was the preface to that revelation. And that is still the instruction. Remove the sandals of definition, of trying to carry this in the dust of human thought. This is holy ground. The mind, trained under cosmic law, wants a file folder. It asks, what does I am mean? How does it apply to rent, to diagnosis, to my son overseas? And I understand that question. I have asked it. I still find it rising on days when the mail piles up. And I must say with you, I don't know all that it means. That hasn't unfolded to me yet. But I can tell you what it does when it touches consciousness. It hushes the compulsion to outline. It stills the bargaining. It ends the search for an external source. It becomes felt not as an emotion, but as an atmosphere out of which wisdom speaks in quiet phrases and actions present themselves without strain. My sheep hear my voice, the Master said. That is the shift from concept in the head to contact in the heart. Do you notice how the mind tries to turn even this into a technique? If I say I am 10 times, will the job come? That is law at work, cause and effect, penalties and rewards. But listen, the law came by Moses, but grace and truth came by Jesus Christ. There is a movement here from naming to knowing, from analyzing God to abiding in God. Grace does not operate by your metrics. Grace operates by presence realized. When I am is known even a little, lack loses its because. It no longer has a story to stand on. Why? Because in I there is no outside from which supply must be fetched. I is supply. I embody supply. The forms that you call money, opportunity, medicine, ideas, those are appearances of an invisible substance already present in the I that I am. I had a student, quiet woman, accounts payable, single mother, who sat one afternoon with the figures and could not make them agree, not at home and not at work. The sense report said shortage. The fear said, pick up the phone, plead, hurry. She did the opposite. She closed the ledger, not irresponsibly, but reverently, and sat with that bare word we have been practicing, I am. She did not add provided for, though the temptation was strong. She waited until the atmosphere changed, until what the psalmist called, be still and know that I am God, was more real than the red ink. That evening, a vendor called not to collect, but to correct an invoice in her favor. The next morning, a neighbor, unasked, offered childcare during a double shift. Do you think she made those events by affirmation? No. The invisible alignment began the moment she left analysis and entered contact. Seek ye first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all these things shall be added unto you. That is not poetry. That is principle. Understand me. This is not passivity. This is priority. We are not refusing action. We are refusing to let action usurp the throne of presence. When I is realized as self-sustained, being safety is not hunted. It reveals as right place, right time, a word spoken that softens an official's heart, a turn down a different street. Guidance is not squeezed out of anxious questions. It surfaces like a buoy when the water grows still. Supply is not chased. It appears in the forms fitting to the day. And sometimes the fitting form is restraint, so that the excess does not bury you before you are rooted to bear it. And I must say, as it unfolds in me, that the greatest change is not in the outer scenes. It is in the sense of identity. Before Abraham was, I am, the Master declared. Not a human self-boasting of antiquity, but the recognition that true self is before and beyond the narrations of fear and fortune. When that self is contacted, not argued, reality begins to govern appearances. The senses may still shout. The bills may still be in the mailbox. The body may still register yesterday's weather. But another law is felt. Another government is near. The kingdom of God is within you. That is the revelation in the bush today. Not a name to study, but a presence to yield to. Yield, and you will watch in due season how realization changes what can appear as your life. Now, because this presence reveals itself as forms, let us be very plain about forms. Money isn't supply, a job isn't supply, a person isn't supply. Those are forms, appearances through which supply may show itself for a season. Do you see the freedom in that? If money was supply, then when a number dipped, supply would have vanished. If a job were supply, then a pink slip would be a sentence. If a person were supply, then their absence would make you an orphan. But listen to the inner axiom that has been given us and let it take root. I is supply. I embody supply. Supply isn't external to me. In other words, the substance is not the coin in the hand, but the life in the I. The Master did not say, I am the vault. He said, I am the bread of life. Bread is the symbol. Life is the reality. I am the vine, ye are the branches. The fruit on the branch is not the source of its own sweetness. It is the evidence of a root you do not see. And as a matter of fact, that is the parable we have used again and again because it won't wear out. The orange tree. You smile at those oranges hanging in the sun, but the oranges do not manufacture themselves by anxiety. They are the seasonal appearing of an invisible process, the hidden life forever at work. The farmer doesn't paste fruit to the limb. He tends the root, trusts the life, honors the season. So when you sit with a bank balance that reads like a late frost and the bills look like a row of empty baskets, remember this. Those figures are fruit. Presence is root. If the fruit seems sparse, don't paint the oranges. Don't shout at the branch. Don't try to bully the season. Tend the root. Return to I am until the inner soil loosens and the sap of peace moves again. Consider the lilies, how they grow, said the Master, not how they strain. Growth is the nature of life when the root drinks. Supply is the nature of I when contact is made. You can test this in the ordinary way. The notice arrives. The old training says, run, plead, fix. And sometimes there will be a call to make, sometimes a letter to write. But first, make the contact. Sit long enough to feel more reality in the I than in the invoice. Give us this day our daily bread. That is not a shopping list. That is a prayer of alignment, a consent to the presence that is bread before it is loaf. As that consent settles, you will find that action, if any, rises from a different center. A thought occurs that had not been available in the noise. A friend's name comes to mind, not with desperation, but with quiet authorization. or no action is required at all, and something moves on your behalf that your outlining could never have arranged. My God shall supply all your need according to his riches in glory by Christ Jesus. Glory is invisible to sense. Riches in glory are not coins until they must be. Let me say it yet again, because this is the breaking of the spell. Money is not supply. Money appears and disappears. Stocks rise and fall. Titles change. People come and go. But the I that I am has no fluctuation, no market. Whosoever drinketh of the water that I shall give him shall never thirst. The water is presence realized. From that well, the forms of supply draw themselves in right shapes, right amounts, right times. And if you ask me exactly how this or that will show, I can only be honest. I don't know. That hasn't unfolded to me yet for your case. But the principle stands. Live it. Exemplify it. Tend the root, and let the tree be a tree. Do not try to hire I am as your private banker. Do not flatter it with adjectives to coerce a harvest. Rest in it until it is felt as the quiet sufficiency at the center. Then watch, without strain, how appearances are governed. One day it will be a check. Another day a cancellation of charge. Another day a restraint from buying what would have entangled you. Another day a skill awakening that turns into income. The forms vary, the substance is one. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. That is not poetry, that is reality speaking for itself as I. When you begin here, lack consciousness dissolves, not because fruit was pasted on your life, but because the invisible root announced itself and in due season showed fruit. Some of you will say, all right, I hear you about presence, but what about the ledger of my life? I have made mistakes, I have been foolish, I have broken promises, therefore I must suffer. Therefore I cannot receive. That is the inner courtroom of lack. It sounds very noble. It quotes a kind of justice. It puts you in the dock and hammers the gavel in your ribs until you agree to penalties. That is cosmic law. As ye sow, so shall ye reap. And under that sense of law, you will keep paying and paying, paying in fear, paying in self-condemnation, paying in hesitant prayers that expect no answer. Do you see? Lack persists where you believe in penalties. But hear this as principle and not as sentiment. You are only under cosmic law until you touch even a little the realization of grace. The law came by Moses, grace and truth came by Jesus Christ. In other words, there is an order here. First comes the schooling of the mind in cause and effect. Then comes the revelation that God is not a bookkeeper. Grace isn't amnesia. It is authority. It does not say the past did not happen. It says the I that I am was never in that past to begin with. Before Abraham was, I am. Do you catch it? Identity precedes and outruns the story. When I am is realized, the penalties of yesterday meet a law they cannot bind. I will tell you quietly of a woman who came with a face like a tired winter. She carried 6 years of a tangle tax notices, a failed partnership, a brother she had sued and then regretted, a credit report that, in the world's terms, had her name nailed to a door. She sat across from me and whispered, I did this. I must bear it. Bless me if you can, but I cannot expect supply. I must do penance. And I could only say what I say to you. Don't try, live it, exemplify it. Let us not fix papers. Let us contact presence. We sat. No words to improve God. No bargaining. Just the bare I am until the tears changed temperature from hot with shame to warm with quiet. Something in her surrendered not to fate, but to I. Neither do I condemn thee, rose in consciousness. Not as a line remembered, but as a presence that had no condemnation to give. In the next 10 days, without clever outlining, 2 things happened that law could not have scheduled. A government letter arrived offering a review she had not requested, removing penalties and establishing a humane plan, and the estranged brother, without knowing a thing of our meeting, telephoned and said, "Let's begin again. Do you think a technique purchased those mercies? Grace overruled law, not irresponsibly, but divinely. The penalties met the presence and had to bow." Grace is not a theory. It is an inward release where the separate self puts down its little tools, stops its management, and yields the field to the I that is untouched by your history. In that moment, you are not the one who failed. You are the one in whom God is being itself. There is therefore now no condemnation to them which are in Christ Jesus. That is not a reward for good behavior. That is the atmosphere of realized presence. And from that atmosphere, right action emerges without the whip. Sometimes it is a phone call made without tremor. Sometimes it is an apology that tastes like freedom. Sometimes it is the holy restraint to do nothing and let the Red Sea part while you stand still and see the salvation of the Lord. But in all of it, the initiative is grace. Go and sin no more is not a threat. It is the empowerment that comes when condemnation has been silenced. Make it practical. When the judge in your chest starts the recital, you wasted those years. You blew that chance. You must not expect good. Stop the trial. Return to I am. Sit until the sense of I is more substantial than the courtroom drama. Be still and know that I am God. Don't try to invent outcomes. Don't try to buy God with improved conduct. Consent to presence. Then watch how appearance is governed. A door may open that was bolted by your own self-judgment. A conversation may take a turn you could not have scripted. Or a long-delayed idea may unfold in season and bring you into a field where none of yesterday's penalties apply. I don't know the form that hasn't unfolded to me yet for your case, but the principle stands. The power of grace sets aside cosmic law. This is the threshold. Begin again from the I. Let history be history. The I that I am has no past to pay, no future to secure. Old things are passed away. Behold, all things are become new is not a slogan. It is the nature of reality when realized. Yield to that reality. Let it announce you to yourself as free. And as you live in that freedom, the forms of supply will reveal themselves in right ways and right times, not as wages earned by sorrow, but as life blossoming from the root that was never injured. Where the Spirit of the Lord is, there is liberty. Stand there. Stay there. And notice how lack, once so loud with penalties, cannot speak in that court at all. Now comes a tender correction for most of us. Appearances are loud, reality is silent, the senses shout, the kingdom whispers, and because we live most of our hours by what we can count and carry and photograph, we take the loud report as truth and the silent as imagination. But listen carefully, not to me, to the principle. What we see, hear, taste, touch, and smell is not the final creation. It is a report. Often it is a distorted report. Judge not according to the appearance, but judge righteous judgment. In other words, don't sign the delivery receipt just because the package is noisy. You know this in a lesser way. A fog bank moves in and the shoreline vanishes. Has the shore ceased to be? No. The eye cannot report it. Or you drive a hot road and see a lake mirage where no lake is. The eye reports a glitter. There is no water there. So with lack consciousness is a heat in the mind. It shimmers. It projects lack forms, thin bank balances, tight throats, doors that seem closed, and then we bow before that shimmer, call it truth, and worship its altar with frantic measures. The altar pays us back with more of its own evidence. As ye sow, so shall ye reap. Under law, sow to appearance, reap appearance. Let me say it plainly, and it may jar you at first. There's no matter as substance, no material law as the government of your life. What the senses bring is a mental picture, a snapshot taken through the lens of your present state. When that state is fear, the picture exaggerates shadows. When that state is quiet, the same scene softens and offers you angles you could not see before. This is not psychology, this is principle. God is the substance of all true form. Reality is God being itself as life, as order, as sufficiency. The senses do not report God. My kingdom is not of this world, not because the kingdom is elsewhere, but because it is of another order. The kingdom of God is within you. Do you see the shift of address? Not out there in improved circumstances, here realized as presence. We get in trouble when we invert that order. We wait for the circumstance to change so that we can have peace. But peace, realized, is the law that changes circumstances. We hunt for proof in numbers, and the numbers, obedient servants that they are, mirror back our hunt. We look not at the things which are seen, but at the things which are not seen. For the things which are seen are temporal, the things which are not seen are eternal. That is not a poetry reading. That is a working instruction. Withdraw your gaze, even a little, from the camera of sense, and turn it to the eye that is invisible to sense. I am. When you rest in I am without decoration, you quietly pull the plug on the neon signs of appearance. The room grows less garish. The headlines in your chest go from 7 two-point tight to a footnote. Reality begins to register not as a sensation, but as a hush that governs. Be still and know that I am God. The knowing does not come from arguing down the bills or the report or the memory of last winter's mistakes. It comes from contact. In that contact, you discover a strange and holy fact. The appearances do not have power. They have noise. They borrow your credence to keep flickering. Withdraw that credence, and they have to submit to reality. I had a man warehouse supervisor who came with a story as loud as forklifts. Orders canceled, overtime cut, a rumor of layoffs moving like a cough through the staff room. The senses said, prepare for scarcity. He practiced what we are saying, no decoration, no bargaining, just a returning to I am until the chest sank from anxious heave to ordinary breath. Two quiet things followed. First, a rerouting idea appeared that saved his section hours of waste, and his manager saw it. Second, the rumor thinned, not because he fought it, but because the appearance had lost a believer in him. Was there still noise on the floor? Certainly. But appearance had shifted from tyrant to weather. Weather is governed by law. In due season, it changes. This is the gentleness of the kingdom. It does not argue with your senses. It supersedes them. It does not shout. It reigns. And I must tell you honestly, I don't know how many minutes it will take for your eyes to refocus in a given day. That hasn't unfolded to me yet for your case. But the principle is settled. The senses report appearances. I am introduces you to reality, and reality governs appearances. Begin to live from that order. The next segment of our work will be to bring that word off the lips and into the chest, so that the hush of the kingdom is not a theory in your head, but an atmosphere in which you move. For now, notice the volume knob in your own consent. Turn down the report. Turn up the inner, and watch how loudness loses its spell when you sit with the one that never raises its voice. This is the turning. This is what you have been waiting for, whether you knew the name of it or not. The moment when I am moves from the lips into the chest, when it ceases to be a statement you manage and becomes a presence that manages you. It seldom announces itself with trumpets. More often it comes like the dawn, quietly, almost shyly, the room slowly changing without your adjusting the lamps. The wind bloweth where it listeth, the Master said. Thou hearest the sound thereof, but canst not tell whence it cometh and whither it goeth. In other words, you do not catch it by pursuing it, you receive it by consenting. How do you know it is beginning? Small signs. Your breathing, which had been pacing the floor with your thoughts, sits down. The shoulders drop the inch they had borrowed from fear. The argument in the head grows bored with itself and pauses, not because you have won the debate, but because there is nothing to debate. The future, which was clutching your sleeve with a calendar and a calculator, loosens its hand. There is a sense, call it a hush, call it a warmth, call it an all-rightness that is not attached to any outcome. A wordless enough begins to glow in the middle of you. The peace of God, which passeth all understanding, shall keep your hearts and minds. Peace that passes understanding does not arrive as a reason. It arrives as presence. Do not force it. Don't try. Live it. Exemplify it. Sometimes it will be there in a flash, a sudden turning of the inner weather while you are washing a plate. Sometimes it will be days of returning to I am and finding only the echo of your own voice until one morning, with no improvement in the mail and no new message on the machine, the echo stops and the room is occupied. Give it permission to have its own timing. In returning and rest shall ye be saved. In quietness and in confidence shall be your strength. Returning, not sprinting. Rest, not manipulation. Quietness, not analysis. Confidence, not bravado. Why does this end lack consciousness? Because lack is not first a number, it is a contraction of identity. It squeezes you into a little self pinned to yesterday's errors and tomorrow's bills. Presence reverses the squeeze. Identity expands beyond form and time. Before Abraham was, I am. When I is felt, you are not the creature of a ledger. You are the host of an indwelling life. That life does not wait for the figure to change to be itself. In the felt awareness of I, the me and my situation dissolves into a larger in which this situation is held, and fear loses its jurisdiction. Perfect love casteth out fear, not by argument, by being. I watched this unfold in a man who drove a city bus. 3 days from rent, he sat with I am and found only syllables. He told me it felt like I was talking at a wall. And we did not decorate it. We did not bargain. He stayed with the bare word each morning before his route, as simple as breathing. On the third day, at a long red light, he said it again, I am, and something gave way. No fireworks, just a warmth moving from throat to chest, a breath that arrived without his calling it, and a stillness that made the rest of the shift feel, as he put it, quiet in the middle even with the horns. Nothing external had yet changed, but he had changed. That afternoon, his supervisor, unprompted, offered training for an express line at a higher rate. That evening, a neighbor knocked to say, we've planted more than we can eat. Would you take some? Do you think the phrase bought those forms? No. The inward shift did what grace always does. It gave the appearance a new governor. You will learn to tell the difference between mental relief and presence. Mental relief says, it will be all right because this and this and this are likely. Presence says nothing and makes you know, I shall not want. Mental relief rests on probabilities. Presence rests on I. One is fragile and needs constant feeding. The other is quiet and feeds you. Make a habit of the simplest helps. When you notice yourself pushing words, stop, breathe. Feel the hands resting where they are. Say inwardly once, only once, I am, and let it sink as if through the floor of the mind into the rib cage, into the belly, till even the soles of the feet share it. Be still and know that I am God. Stay until the knowing is a felt fact, even if slight, even if it is no more than a softening at the edge of the worry. If you ask me how many minutes, I can only be honest. I don't know. That hasn't unfolded to me yet for your case, but the principle stands. Presence known, even a little, alters what can appear as your life. This is the turning point. The secret is not the phrase I am, but the inward shift where I am becomes consciously felt presence. From here, action will lose its panic, ideas will come without noise, and time itself will stop pushing you around. Live in that felt I, and watch lack consciousness fall away like a coat in warm weather. And then, in the ordinary day, we will practice sitting until that I is more real than any problem, and let right action proceed from grace rather than from fear. Today, let us be as simple as the Master taught and as direct. Sit. Wherever you are, a kitchen chair, the front seat of the car before you turn the key, a bench outside the office, sit, and remove your attention from the problem as you would take a child's hand off a hot stove. Don't argue with the mind. Gently, deliberately, let the attention slide from figures, faces, forecasts, and center it where the rib cage rises and falls. Let the heart say once quietly, without decoration, I am. Stop. No more than that. Not I am this, not I am that. Just I am, and be still. If the mind dashes back to the problem, as it often does, do not chase it with explanations, and do not fight return. A simple rhythm will help. I am, pause, I am, pause. Let the syllables sink below the neck and come to rest in the chest, in the belly, in the soles of the feet. You are not making something happen. You are consenting to what already is. Be still and know that I am God. Knowing doesn't mean describing. It means contact. Stay until there is even the faintest evidence of that contact. A softening at the edges of the worry. A breath that comes of its own accord. A small warmth that doesn't ask your permission to be there. That is enough. From a mustard seed, the tree grows. Now, what not to do, because this is where most prayer turns into anxiety with a halo. Do not outline how the good must appear. Do not write the script for God and then call it faith. Do not visualize checks or a benefactor's face or a telephone ringing with the perfect offer. Do not plead, bargain, or promise to be better in exchange for a rescue. Your Father knoweth what things ye have need of before ye ask him. In other words, there is no information you can provide to reality that it lacks. The asking is alignment, not briefing. The moment you find yourself decorating I am with adjectives, successful, wealthy, employed, notice it, smile, and let the adjectives fall away. They are usually fear in a tuxedo. Some of you will say, how long? I can only be honest. I don't know. That hasn't unfolded to me yet for your case. The principle stands. Sit until the I is more substantial to you than the problem. It may be 5 minutes today, and tomorrow it may take 15 for the mind to untie its knots. What matters is not the clock. What matters is the shift of government from the pictures on the screen to the presence that is the light of the screen. Take no thought for your life, the Master said. Seek ye first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all these things shall be added unto you. Seeking first is what you are doing when you consent to I am without telling it what to add. When a sense of contact is there, however slight, stop the practice as practice. Move then into the next right thing, but do it from presence, not from panic. You may still write the check, you may still make the call, you may still go to the interview, but notice the source. Right action from I carries a different texture. It is clean, unhurried, without the covert demand that the act prove God. It is obedience, not bargaining. My peace I give unto you, not as the world giveth. Let that peace be the governor of the step. Build a simple cadence into your day. Morning, before the headlines, before the inbox, sit and let 2 or 3 breaths marry the bare I am. Midday, when the noise gathers, step aside even to a restroom stall, if that is all you have, and take 60 seconds to return to the center. Evening, lay down the pictures of the day, good and bad alike, and let the last word not be about forms but about I. Over time, this becomes atmosphere rather than appointment. In quietness and in confidence shall be your strength. Quietness, because you have taken your hands off the levers. Confidence, because you have placed yourself where grace can govern. Do not test this principle by peeking at the mailbox to see if it worked. Live it, exemplify it. The fruit announces itself when it is time. The root is announcing itself now. If a fear insists on shouting at you while you sit, answer it only with the presence. It is I, be not afraid. And then without flourish and without haste, rise and go about your day. Supply is not made by your effort. It unfolds as the I you have contacted. Sit until that is more real than the problem, and let the forms add themselves in right ways and right times under the quiet law of the kingdom. Unfoldment has a pace, and it is not your watch. To everything there is a season, the scripture says. And the master gave it in the field parable. First the blade, then the ear, after that the full corn in the ear. In other words, life is not a vending machine you rattle for quicker candy. It is a living order. When you touch I am, conception takes place. You may feel only a hush, only a softening, only a small yes where a no had lived for months. That is conception. The form may not be visible, yet the life is present and working invisibly, and it will appear in its right way and in its right time. Take the birth metaphor seriously and gently. A child conceived today is not born tomorrow at noon because the calendar looks open. It grows in the secret place, curiously wrought in the lowest parts of the earth, as the psalmist phrases it. So with supply, an idea, a contact, a new capacity is conceived in your consciousness when you yield to I. You may not be able to speak it yet. Don't try. Live it. Exemplify it. Let it take root until, without your pushing, it is flesh of your flesh, bone of your bone, and then birth is as natural as sunrise. It may happen this week. It may be 3 years. I don't know honestly. That hasn't unfolded to me yet for your case. But the principle stands. Once conceived in I, it is certain. Impatience is like wearing a hurry. It says, if this doesn't come by Friday, there is no God. That gives the calendar the powers of a deity, and then you pray to time instead of to presence. Notice it. When urgency seizes you by the collar, you are usually believing that supply is external and scarce, and that you must seize it before someone else does. There is no such God. Your Father knoweth what things ye have need of before ye ask him. In other words, you do not have to persuade God. You have to be still enough to recognize what is already functioning as your life. Presence is not late. Our attention is late. Bring it home and watch the tyranny of the clock loosen its grip. Here is a homely parable. A little coastal town, battered by drought, was paying truckers to haul water from 2 counties away. The cost was a terror. The mayor looked 10 years older in one season. One afternoon, a retired engineer, quiet as Morse, brought a map to the meeting. There's an aquifer under us, he said. We've been driving past the drill site every day. Skeptics muttered. But they staked the rig behind the old cannery, and in a week a clear column rose and the trucks were dismissed. Do you see? That is the oil beneath your feet principle. Your good is not imported from afar. It is revealed. The eye is the aquifer. Contact is the drill. When the bit touches the vein, you do not need hype, you need pipes and patience. Flow follows law. I sat with a young woman, graphic designer, whose contracts had thinned. She wanted a name to call, a platform to beg, a plan to flood the internet in a week. Instead, we returned to I am until the chest said yes and the eyes stopped flashing. In the quiet that followed, one quiet directive rose. Finish the small series she had abandoned 2 years earlier. No fireworks, just obedience, without bargaining. She worked inwardly from that peace. It took 3 months. Then, with no promotion, one piece was noticed by a firm that had been sitting 3 blocks from her studio all along. Was that a miracle? It was unfoldment. The supply was not money in a cloud. It was the idea embodied in her, conceived in rest and born in season. Be not weary in well-doing, for in due season we shall reap if we faint not. Anchor your faith without noise. Faith is not talking God into a schedule. Faith is quiet agreement with reality. My word shall not return unto me void, is the divine assurance. When you have contacted I, you have touched the word being spoken as your life. Leave off coercion. Return to contact. Let right action proceed when the hush has taken the driver's seat. If something must be done today, it will be given today. If not, your not doing is obedience, not failure. The eye does not hurry, yet never fails. They that wait upon the Lord shall renew their strength. They shall mount up with wings as eagles. Wait does not mean idle. It means inwardly yielded, outwardly available. And as you live by that cadence, you will discover what every tree already knows. The root is working while the branch seems still, and when the season turns, fruit appears without strain, without boast, without a single anxious hour having made it come. Your work is contact, not coercion. The season belongs to God. Now let us take up a modern idol that keeps lack alive even after you have touched the hush. Comparison. It is the whisper that says, her gain is my loss. Their launch pushes me to the edge. There are only so many seats, and I am late. That whisper is not truth. It is a superstition inherited from markets and magazines. In the kingdom there is no competition. In my Father's house are many mansions. In other words, reality is spacious. Your place is not a slot in a crowded aisle. Your place is an idea in God, and no one can sit in it for you or take it from you. Hear the principle. Money isn't supply. Positions aren't supply. Reviews, followers, clients aren't supply. I is supply. I embody supply. What is truly yours is embodied within the I, that you are the individualized expression of the one. It unfolds as your capacity, your timing, your angle of light. Therefore, it cannot be crowded out, priced out, or competed away. A man can receive nothing except it be given him from heaven. Heaven is not a sky. It is the withinness of I am. When you rest there, you stop begging the world for permission to exist. Comparison thrives on the belief that life is a pie and the slices are thin. Truth is not a pie. Truth is a tree. An orange tree does not compete with a tree across the fence. Each draws from the one invisible life, and each bears fruit in its season, its flavor. You smile at those oranges because you know the invisible supply is going on. So with you, your function, your form of service, your income stream is not outside to be seized before the neighbor grabs it. It is inside to be realized, nurtured, and allowed to appear. The earth is the Lord's, and the fullness thereof. Fullness cannot be a race. I sat with a young baker who lived 3 doors from a famous chain. Every morning, as their line curved around the block, his chest knotted. He copied their specials, discounted his prices, and went home ashamed and tired. We did not try to game the market. We returned to I am until the shoulders let go. In the quiet, one directive came. Bake the bread his grandmother had taught him, the one loaf that had no rival because it was his. In 2 weeks, the neighborhood began to come for that loaf to linger in a different atmosphere. The chain kept its line. He kept his peace. Supply was not a contest, it was an unveiling. Thou preparest a table before me, not by moving others, but by revealing you. The practical sign that you are leaving lack consciousness is simple. You can bless another's good without a wince. Rejoice with them that do rejoice. Try it as a practice. When you see a colleague celebrated, let the heart say, thank you for that appearing, and mean it. Do not do this to get your turn. Live it, because in I there are no turns. The same life that appears as her success is your life, individualized as your way. When envy loosens, room appears not out there, in here. And in that room, ideas are born and births take place on time. Do not ask me exactly how your place will show itself. I don't know, that hasn't unfolded to me yet for your case. But the principle is settled. Identity realized in I is uncontested. My kingdom is not of this world, not because it is elsewhere, but because it is of another order than markets and slots and leaderboards come out from that order. Sit in I am until you feel that you are not waiting your turn in a queue. You are the tree rooted in the one. Then act as the tree acts, without hurry, without imitation, without apology. Bless every other tree. The forest is God. Your fruit is assured. Now we let this move out of the sanctuary and into the sink, the steering wheel, the screen. The principle does not ask for a stage. It asks for consent in small places. In the kitchen, before the accounts, before the headlines, before you reach for the phone, put your hand on the counter and let the heart say once, I am. Stop there. Not to conjure a cheerful day, but to acknowledge presence. Thy Father which seeth in secret shall reward thee openly. In other words, the contact is the work. The forms will report to it in their time. Picture the morning rush. The kettle hisses. The child calls from the hallway. The envelope on the table glares like a billboard. The old habit is to solve first and pray later. Reverse it. Be still and know. Say, I am once, and stand 2 breaths longer than your fear wants. Don't try to feel holy. Just don't run. You are not improving a circumstance. You are consenting to the indwelling I. Sometimes, in that tiny pause, a right sequence appears: toast first, call the school, the envelope later, and the house breathes. Sometimes nothing appears but a softening at the edge of the mind. That is enough. Live it. Exemplify it. On the commute, when the light turns red and your calendar flares, do not sermonize yourself. Catch the irritation at its birth and return without a story. I am. Let the shoulders drop back into their sockets. Listen to the horns as weather, not as law. This is how the nervous system learns sufficiency, not by reading another chapter, but by being held in presence while the world still honks. You will discover that reactions which once owned you now pass through like birds across a sky that does not keep their imprint. Peace, be still. That is not argument, that is governance. At the inbox, make a sacrament of the first minute. Before you open a single message, lay the hands in your lap and consent to I am. Then open. If a harsh note greets you, do not defend first. Return again and feel for the hush in the chest. From there, you will know whether to answer now, wait, or not answer at all. Often a soft answer turns away wrath, not because you have found the perfect sentence, but because you have refused to join another storm. And if you do not yet know what to say nothing. Set a watch, O Lord, before my mouth. Keep the door of my lips. You may not be able to explain to a colleague what you are doing. Don't try. Let the tone of your reply be the explanation. Embodiment before instruction. Carry this into conversations. At the doorway of a difficult meeting, step aside inwardly and whisper, "It is I. Be not afraid." Then walk in as the host of presence, not the guest of anxiety. You will find slowly at first, then as a dependable rhythm, that words form themselves with less push and listening becomes more intelligent than cleverness. If someone asks you later, what changed? Be honest. If the description hasn't unfolded, say, I don't know, I only paused, and something larger took the driver's seat. These are not techniques. These are acknowledgments. Frame the day's results rightly. A place opens in the schedule. A call returns that had gone silent. The mechanic finds the small fix instead of the big bill. Do not call it magic. Call it natural evidence of inward alignment. Commit thy way unto the Lord. Trust also in him, and he shall bring it to pass. Money isn't supply. Emails aren't supply. I is supply. I embody supply. When the inner government is grace, appearances line up under it in their right order, sometimes at once, sometimes by inches. I don't know how quickly it will show for you today that hasn't unfolded to me yet for your case, but the principle is settled. Live as if every threshold were an altar, kitchen sink, car door, office chair. One breath, one I am. Then act without hurry. If you forget by 10 o'clock, begin again at 10:01. Pray without ceasing does not mean words without ceasing. It means consent as a way of moving through rooms. Let the small places be your teachers. Presence must be lived, not merely spoken. And as it is lived, it will prove itself where you are, in forms so ordinary you might have missed them if you had not first said simply and without decoration, I am. Good morning, then, for the road. Let us be plain. When you rise from this room, appearances will still do what appearances do. Bills will still arrive in the mail with their square little faces. Feelings will lift and drop like weather. The senses will report the old headlines with great confidence. Do not take that as failure. Judge not according to the appearance, but judge righteous judgment. In other words, the noise of the outer does not erase the fact of the inner. You have touched I, even if only as a hush along the edge of worry, and that touch has changed the government. It may not shout, but it is real. This is the assurance I can give you out of experience. You do not go back to the same lack once you have even once consciously known I am. You may forget for a morning. You may be frightened for an hour, but you cannot unknow what has been known. You cannot untaste what you have tasted. Oh, taste and see that the Lord is good. And once tasted, the palate remembers. The old arguments may knock, but they do not own the house. I give unto them eternal life, and they shall never perish, neither shall any man pluck them out of my hand. No bill has that authority. No season has that authority. Lack loses its throne when presence is felt, because presence is the throne. Do not make a crusade of keeping the feeling. That is just another form of fear. Don't try. Live it. Exemplify it. Your part is small and blessed. Return. Briefly. Gently. Often. Let I am be the first word at the sink, the quiet word at the light, the last word before sleep. Not to force outcomes, to acknowledge reality. I will never leave thee nor forsake thee. In other words, I is not conditional upon your sterling mood. Contact is grace before it is discipline. And if you forget and the day runs hot, begin again at 2 in the afternoon or 9 at night. The principle works at all hours because it is the principle, not your performance. You may ask, how long before the outer reflects the inner in the ways I hope? I can only be honest. I don't know. That hasn't unfolded to me yet for your case. But I do know this. He which hath begun a good work in you will perform it. Once conception has taken place in I, the birth is certain. Do not keep peeking under the blanket to see if the child is bigger. Keep the atmosphere warm. Keep your consent steady. If action is to be taken today, the peace will lead you to it without argument. If not, your stillness is obedience, not inaction. Grace does not need your anxiety to help it along. Carry forward a single remembrance. Money isn't supply, form isn't substance, market isn't law. I is supply. I embody supply. When you feel the tug to decorate those words, I am successful, I am funded, I am secure, smile and stop. Adjectives often smuggle fear. The name is sufficient. Before Abraham was, I am. Keep it bare and let God be God. Let presence be presence. As you live by this simplicity, you will notice a new background to your day, like a key quietly holding the song together. Calls that need to return will return in their hour. Ideas will surface when you are washing a plate. Peace will take the driver's seat in meetings that used to own your stomach. The forms will add themselves because reality governs appearance, not the other way around. So go gently. Bless the rooms you enter with one inward word. Sit when you can, stand in I when you cannot sit. Rejoice in another's good and know it does not threaten yours. Begin again as often as needed without scolding. This is not heroics, this is consent. My peace I give unto you, not as the world giveth. Receive it, rest in it, let it become the atmosphere of your hours, and let the hours show you what has always been true. Once I am is realized even a little, you cannot be the same frightened account keeper you were yesterday. Presence has been touched. It cannot be untouched. Underneath are the everlasting arms. Go in that and let grace write the rest.